You ever have that person who's more than just a friend, the one who knows every version of you, the real you, the one behind the mask, behind the powers, behind the legend? Yeah, that person. Now, what happens when they're suddenly gone? No warning, no goodbye, just gone. Not because of a mistake, not because of an accident, but because someone chose to take them away. Hold that thought, because in this video, you're going to find out exactly what happens when a superhero loses the one thing even superpowers can't bring back, his best friend. But here's the real twist. What he does next is nothing like you'd expect. Before we dive deep, let me tell you straight up, this isn't just another superhero versus villain story. You're not here for that. You're here because you saw the title and thought, wait, what actually happens when someone with godlike power feels real human pain? You're about to find out, but more importantly, you're going to feel it. This story, this world we're stepping into together, it's built for you, the kind of person who doesn't just want action and explosions. Don't worry, we got that too, but craves a story with depth, heart, betrayal, and redemption. You're not just watching. You're going to be inside this journey every step of the way. Now listen, I know what happens on YouTube. We scroll, we click, we bounce. But I want you to stay, because what you're about to experience will hit you different. If you've ever loved someone so deeply that losing them would shake your whole identity, this one's going to speak to you. And here's the promise. By the end of this video, you will get the answer to the question you came for. What will he do now that his best friend is gone? But we're not skipping ahead. Oh no, you need to walk this road with him. You need to see who he was before everything fell apart. Only then can you understand the weight of what's coming. And trust me, what's coming is heavy. We're starting in a city that never really sleeps. Not because it's noisy or full of life, but because even in silence, there's always something lurking. Our hero, yeah, he's powerful, can fly, can heal, can tear through steel with a glance. But right now, none of that matters. Because none of those powers could save him. His best friend, the one person who grounded him, who kept him from losing himself in the chaos of being the chosen one, was taken out. Not in a flashy supervillain battle, not in a big world-ending threat, but in a quiet, calculated hit. Just a regular night. 1 second they're laughing over greasy burgers at a late-night diner. The next, bam, a phone rings, a breath catches, a life ends. And the worst part? Our hero didn't even see it coming. You ever notice how grief doesn't come in like a storm? No, it seeps in slow. A whisper, a missed call, a chair that stays empty. It eats at you little by little. That's where we find him now. Not in his suit, not saving lives, but standing in the wreckage of his own. He's not thinking about justice. He's thinking about revenge. And that's the danger. Because when someone with power like his gets pushed past the point of no return, everything changes. That's why you're here. That's why you have to stay. Because the man you thought you knew at the start of this video, he's not who you'll see by the end. Now, let me ask you something personal. When was the last time you felt powerless? Like no matter how much you want to change something, no matter how strong your will, it just wasn't enough? That's where he is. And as you're about to see, it's that feeling, not strength, that's going to define his next move. This isn't just his story. It's ours. Because everyone watching this right now has lost something. Someone. Some part of themselves. And if you've ever stood in that place between who you were and who you have to become, then yeah, this one's for you. The world thinks it wants a superhero. But what it really wants is a savior who feels. Someone who hurts, who breaks, who bleeds, who rages. Because when that person rises again, when they stand back up not as a perfect protector, but as a flawed, grieving, vengeful force, you watch. You don't look away. And that's exactly what's about to happen. But not the way you think. There's a name whispered in back alleys tonight. A name the villains didn't dare speak before. Because they didn't just kill a man, they created something else. Something darker. Something that doesn't play by the old rules. You think you've seen what he's capable of? Not yet, but you will. Soon. Because this is the chapter they didn't want you to see. The part of the story where the hero stops being nice. stops holding back, stops believing the world can be saved with mercy. We're peeling back every layer in this video. The friendship, the betrayal, the secrets no one saw coming. And yeah, there's a twist buried so deep that when it hits, you'll need to go back and watch this whole thing again just to catch what you missed. That's how we do it here. Not cheap drama. Real story. Real stakes. And I'm talking directly to you right now. If you leave before the story finishes, you're going to regret it. Because the answer to what will he do isn't a punchline. It's a transformation, a reckoning. And the moment it drops, it'll stay with you. Long after the screen goes black. There are new characters about to enter this world. Some want to help him. Some want to use him. And some who might not be what they seem. You'll meet them all. But not just yet. First, we have to go back. Back to the moment everything changed. The spark that lit the fire. And once we step into that memory, there's no turning back. So get ready. Lock in. Don't click away. Don't miss what's coming. Because by the time this story ends, you won't be the same either. And right now, as he kneels in the ashes of what was supposed to be a quiet night, something in him snaps. The camera is still. The city sleeps. But he's just getting started. And as he rises to his feet, blood on his hands, pain in his heart, one name on his lips, someone's going to pay. And the first clue as to who is already watching him, from the shadows, the night after his best friend's death wasn't filled with screaming or rage. It was quiet, hauntingly quiet. The kind of silence that eats at your insides, that swells behind your ribs like a scream too heavy to leave your throat. The city lights blur behind the windshield as he drove aimlessly, his hands clenched around the wheel with such force that the leather began to split. He couldn't go home. Not to the tower. Not to the headquarters. Not to any place that reminded him of who he was supposed to be. Because none of that mattered anymore. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about saving the world. He was thinking about undoing it. Somewhere out there, someone pulled a trigger that ended the life of the only person who ever looked at him like he was just a guy, not a god. And they were still walking free, laughing maybe, sleeping, breathing, while his world had been carved in half. He pulled over near the docks, where the cold air mixed with salt and diesel, and stared out at the still water, the same pier where they used to sneak off as teenagers to get away from all the training, the surveillance, the pressure. Just two kids with vending machine snacks and dreams bigger than their bodies. That night came flooding back. They were sitting on the edge of the dock, kicking their legs over the water, when his friend asked, "Do you ever think we'll make it out of this alive?" He'd laughed back then, cocky and sure. "We'll do more than survive. We'll win." Now that answer felt like a betrayal, because in the end, he hadn't won anything, not even the chance to say goodbye. Somewhere, out in the city's heartbeat, the news of the murder was just breaking. Headlines blared across social feeds. Tragedy in the shadows. Superheroes ally gunned down in cold blood. TikTok was already full of reaction videos. Threads speculating about who was behind it. Shorts highlighting every past mission they completed together. Fans were grieving. Some were angry, but none of them really knew what that friendship meant. The algorithms didn't understand loss. The likes and shares didn't carry the weight of that final heartbeat. But he did. Every second, every breath, every memory. And that's when he made a decision. He wasn't going to wait for justice. He was going to hunt for it. By morning, he had already vanished from the grid. His team tried reaching out. Drones searched his usual paths. Surveillance networks tried to track his biosignal, but he'd scrubbed it clean. The man who once stood in the center of every battle, the golden symbol of hope, had stepped into the shadows. And there was only one person who understood what that meant. Someone watching from afar, someone with their own reasons for staying hidden. She had been his rival once, then an ally, and now, perhaps the only person who knew the full weight of what had been lost. She saw in his eyes the last time they crossed paths. There was something simmering there, something darker than pain. She knew he wouldn't go after the killer directly. Not at first. He'd go deeper. He'd pull every thread, every contact, and peel back every lie that stood between him and the truth. Meanwhile, beneath the city, Far from the flashing lights and reaction videos, a different story was unfolding. There was a secret network, hidden in plain sight, where tech dealers, rogue AI developers, and genetic outlaws operated beyond the reach of any government. It was there that whispers first began. Rumors that the hero was no longer on patrol, that he had turned rogue. They spoke his name in fear now, not reverence. And in that world of shadows, one name kept surfacing. A financier, someone deep-pocketed and invisible, who had placed a bounty, not just on the hero, but on anyone who dare help him. That's how you knew this went deeper than revenge. Someone didn't just want his friend dead. They wanted him broken, isolated, unmoored. As the days passed, he moved like a ghost through the city, gathering intel, intercepting encrypted messages, interrogating former enemies who now feared him more than ever. The gloves were off. The rules were gone. He was no longer the superhero they'd grown up idolizing in fan edits and live streams. He was something else now. Something cold, calculated, terrifying. He didn't leave scars. He left silence. And yet, through all the pain, there was one thing keeping him from going completely off the rails. A mystery. His friend's death wasn't random. There were too many loose ends. The CCTV footage had been tampered with. The gun used wasn't registered in any known database. And worst of all, there were traces of energy. Something not human. Something engineered. Someone had orchestrated this like a symphony. And now he was tracing every note back to its conductor. Parallel to his descent, we're introduced to someone else, an underground reporter who's built her career on uncovering what the mainstream media is too afraid to touch. She wasn't interested in capes or explosions. She hunted truth. Her latest lead? A pattern of disappearances, all linked to people who had once been close to the superhero. Not just a friend who died, but old teachers, colleagues, even an ex-girlfriend from years back. People were vanishing off the map, files erased, bank accounts drained, memories scrubbed, and the deeper she dug, the more she found references to a single code name, Project Afterlight. No one knew what it meant, but whatever it was, it had begun long before the murder, and it wasn't over. She tried to reach out to him, sent encrypted messages, left clues only he would recognize, but got nothing in return. He was on his own path, driven by pain and fury. But as she continued to investigate, she found herself in danger too. Surveillance drones tracked her movements. Her apartment was broken into. And late one night, she came face to face with someone wearing a mask she didn't recognize, until they whispered a name only his best friend would have known. Someone was playing games, twisting the truth, rewriting history. And somehow, the friend's death was only the beginning. Back in the city, he was getting closer to the truth. Every step forward peeled back another layer of betrayal. He learned that his best friend had been keeping secrets, not maliciously, but to protect him. There were encrypted files hidden in their old base, ones that detailed meetings with covert organizations, strange energy signatures, and references to the anomaly. It turned out his friend had discovered something big, and someone had silenced him before he could reveal it. But what was it? What was worth murdering for? The files were incomplete, corrupted, but one phrase stood out. They're already here. At this point, the tone shifts. The story starts to feel bigger, more expansive. No longer just a personal vendetta. It becomes clear there's a larger conspiracy unfolding, one that spans borders, organizations, and time. And just when it feels like we're getting answers, a new piece drops. Surveillance footage from years ago, long believed deleted, showing a young version of the hero's best friend in a secret lab, and standing beside him was the hero himself. But he has no memory of it. None. Which means one thing. His past has been rewritten. Or worse, erased. That's where things truly begin to spiral. He starts questioning everything. His memories, his choices, his identity. Was he always a hero? Or was he made to believe he was? What if the powers weren't a gift, but a program? And if that's true, who wrote the code? That cliffhanger alone is enough to keep viewers locked in for the next part. Because now the question isn't just, what will he do? It's, who is he really? And that's exactly where we're going next. But not yet. Because first, He has to confront someone from his past. Someone he thought was dead. Someone who holds the final piece of the puzzle. And as the camera pans in on their hidden location, deep in an abandoned research bunker outside the city, we see him standing at the entrance, fists clenched, eyes glowing, breath sharp, ready to find the truth, ready to break the silence. And just before he steps inside, the screen cuts to black. The storm was beginning to gather, but it wasn't just the weather that had changed. It was something in the air, something oppressive and charged. The city, which had always hummed with the noise of a million lives, now felt like a pressure cooker, the tension palpable in every corner, every shadow. The hero, now broken by grief and haunted by the mysteries of his best friend's death, was about to dive deeper into a world he'd never imagined, one where everything he thought he knew was a lie, and every step forward could mean more sacrifice. He stood at the threshold of the underground lab, his heart pounding in his chest, each beat echoing the mounting realization that the person he thought he could trust the most had hidden the darkest secrets from him. The darkness inside the abandoned research facility smelled of stale air, mildew, and a lingering scent of something long forgotten. But what he couldn't ignore were the faded blueprints, old photographs, and the haunting silence that seemed to fill the walls. The entire building was nothing more than a ghost, a relic of what came before. And yet, he could feel it in his bones. This place held the answers to the questions he'd been running from since that fateful night. The worst part? The whispers in the air told him it had been waiting for him. With every step he took, his mind buzzed with confusion. How long had he been living in the shadow of these lies? Who had created him? His powers, his purpose, his identity, everything he believed in was suddenly under question. And the more he thought about it, the less he was sure of. His life had been built on a foundation of lies, each one a thread in a tapestry that was now unraveling faster than he could keep up. The silence in the lab was deafening, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for the moment he would find the answers and finally confront the truth. The holographic displays flickered to life as he approached the center of the room, and a familiar voice echoed through the chamber. It wasn't the voice of his friend, though. No, it was deeper, older, and more mechanical. The voice of someone who had been monitoring his every move long before his friend's death. "Welcome back," the voice said, cold and devoid of any warmth. "We've been expecting you." His body tensed, but he didn't flinch. This wasn't the first time he'd been confronted by someone pulling the strings. But this was different. This wasn't an enemy he could defeat with brute force or advanced technology. This was something much more insidious, an entity that had been weaving its influence into every corner of his life. His eyes scanned the room, but there was nothing there, no immediate threat. Instead, the floor beneath him began to move, sliding open to reveal a series of hidden compartments filled with data drives, advanced schematics, and encrypted files. He felt his pulse race. The truth was here, in this room, buried beneath layers of secrecy and security. And then the twist came. As he reached for the nearest drive, the screen before him flickered, displaying a message that made his blood run cold. "Do you really want to know the truth?" Without warning, the doors to the lab slammed shut, sealing him inside. Panic set in, but before he could react, a loud thud came from behind him. The room was now bathed in a crimson glow as the lights above flickered erratically. And there, standing at the far end of the room, was a figure cloaked in shadow. He couldn't see their face, but their presence was undeniable, a force that radiated power and malice. The figure took a step forward, and the voice returned, this time more sinister, more personal. "You've been so focused on finding answers that you've forgotten the most important question, haven't you?" The voice chuckled darkly. "Who's been controlling your every move?" The hero's heart stopped. The figure stepped into the light, and his breath caught in his throat. He didn't know them, but he recognized the look in their eyes. It was the same look he had once seen in the eyes of those he fought beside. But there was something wrong. Something terribly wrong. The figure was no longer human, not fully, anyway. The truth began to unravel in his mind. The heroes, the villains, the powers, the battles, everything had been part of a much larger experiment, one designed to manipulate, to control. And as his mind processed the information, he realized the unthinkable. He was a part of the experiment, his best friend, his ally, had been his only link to the real world. And now he was dead, taken out by the very forces who had orchestrated everything. But why? What was the goal? What was the purpose of creating beings like him, of orchestrating battles, of setting up this entire twisted world? The figure spoke again, their voice now laced with contempt. You were never meant to be a hero. You were a prototype, a weapon. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Weapon. He had always known that his abilities were different, that he had been created for a purpose. But to hear it spoken so plainly, so coldly, hit harder than any physical blow. He wasn't just a hero. He was a tool, a means to an end, a pawn in a game he didn't even know was being played. His friend had tried to warn him, tried to show him the truth, but had been too blind, too eager to believe in the fantasy they'd sold him. As the truth sank in, the figure stepped closer, revealing the full extent of their transformation. Their body was no longer human, but a grotesque hybrid of man and machine, their features distorted by advanced cybernetics. They were one of the first successful experiments, someone who had already crossed a line between man and machine. And they had a message for him. You're not the only one who's been kept in the dark. We all have. But now the time has come for us to finish what we started. Before he could process the words, the figure lunged forward, a blur of metal and speed. He barely managed to react, summoning his powers to deflect the blow, but he was already on the defensive. This wasn't just a fight, it was a reckoning. The figure was stronger, faster, and more ruthless than anyone he'd ever faced. Every move they made was calculated, every strike designed to break him, to show him how weak he really was. The room seemed to close in on him, the walls pressing in, the shadows growing longer, darker. He couldn't escape. He couldn't win. The figure was right. He was nothing more than a tool in a twisted experiment, a weapon created by forces he couldn't even begin to understand. And as the fight raged on, the room itself began to change, revealing more hidden truths. The walls were lined with screens, each one showing images of his life, his battles, his victories, his failures, every moment of his existence, cataloged, studied, manipulated. The entire world had been watching him, waiting for the right moment to strike. In that moment, it all became clear. The conspiracy was far larger than he had imagined. It wasn't just about revenge or justice. It was about control, about rewriting the very fabric of reality itself. And the hero was at the center of it all, a puppet with no strings, no memories, no purpose other than fulfill a plan that was older than he could comprehend. But there was one thing the figure had underestimated. The hero still had his will. And as the figure advanced, a flicker of determination ignited within him. He may have been a tool, but he wasn't powerless. Not yet. With a surge of energy, he fought back, breaking free from the figure's grasp. The battle wasn't over, and neither was his quest for the truth. There was still a chance, a slim one, to break free of the chains that bound him. But at what cost? He didn't know. All he knew was that the road ahead was dark, and he was no longer sure who to trust. And as the final blow landed, when everything seemed lost, the screen cut to black. The final blow, the one that had knocked him off his feet, sent waves of pain through his body, but it wasn't just physical. It was a wound to his very soul. He had always believed that he was the one in control, that his powers, his abilities, were what defined him. But here now, in the sterile, cold lab of deception, he realized how small he truly was in the grand scheme of things. He had been a pawn, a soldier, and above all, a creation, a piece of a much larger plan that he had never understood. But even in the depths of his pain and despair, something inside him refused to break. He was more than a weapon. He had to be. For the first time since he had learned the truth about his existence, he let go of everything. The anger, the confusion, the fear, it all faded away, replaced by a singular, quiet force, his will to survive. He stood, pushing through the haze of exhaustion and disbelief. The figure before him, that grotesque hybrid of man and machine, had paused, sensing the shift in his energy. They looked almost surprised, as if they hadn't anticipated the hero's resilience. The truth was, neither had the hero. It wasn't his powers that would save him now. It wasn't his strength or his skills. It was something far more powerful, a sense of self that no one, no entity could take away from him. You can kill me. You can break me. You can erase everything I've ever known. The hero spoke through gritted teeth, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. But I will not be your puppet. I will not be your weapon. The figure's lips twisted into a smile, but there was something hollow in it, as if the victory they thought they had won was slipping away. They took a step back, adjusting their stance, seemingly uncertain of how to respond to this newfound resolve. You think you have a choice? They asked, their voice colder than before, edged with something approaching desperation. You are part of a much larger design, a design that's been years in the making. You can fight all you want, but the fact remains, you were never meant to be free. The hero's body crackled with energy, but it wasn't the energy of his powers. It was something deeper, more primal. It was the energy of his very essence, of who he truly was. His hands clenched into fists, and he could feel the pressure building, surging through his veins. The room, which had seemed so cold, so alien, began to feel like a battleground, a place where his own fate would be decided. You're wrong, he said, voice low and unwavering. You've been playing this game for so long, but it's over now. The rules are mine, and I'm going to rewrite them. In a blur of motion, he moved faster than the figure could react. He felt the rush of power flow through him, but it wasn't just power, it was clarity. He wasn't fighting for vengeance. He wasn't fighting for justice. He was fighting for his own identity, for his own right to exist on his terms. He was fighting for his humanity. With a single concentrated strike, he broke through the defenses of the figure, sending them sprawling across the floor. But he didn't stop there. He could have ended it right then. He could have destroyed the hybrid once and for all. But something inside him told him to pause. The truth had been laid bare before him, but there was still one question that remained unanswered. Who was truly behind all of this? Who had set this plan in motion? The room began to shake as the walls hummed with an eerie, low-frequency sound, like the gears of an ancient machine slowly grinding into motion. The hybrid struggled to rise, but they seemed disoriented, their usual confidence faltering. You think you've won, don't you? The figure rasped. But you haven't even begun to understand what's really at stake here. Then, in a flash of realization, the hero understood. The hybrid was just a tool, a means to an end. They were nothing more than a reflection of the same darkness that had birthed him. The true enemy, the true force behind this grand design, was not the hybrid, nor even the shadowy organization that had created him. It was something far worse, a corrupted idea, an ideology that sought to control, to dominate, to erase the very essence of what made people human. The walls of the room flickered, and for a split second, the hero saw a glimpse of the real world, his world, through the cracked glass of the facility systems. The vision was distorted, but it was enough to reveal the horrifying truth. The city, the entire world, had been manipulated. His life, his struggles, the battles he fought, all of it had been orchestrated by unseen hands. They were watching, always watching, but that didn't matter now. What mattered was the moment before him. What mattered was a fight that was about to take place. Inside him and outside, in the world he had always known. The hybrid, seeing the realization in the hero's eyes, finally spoke, their voice now tinged with desperation. You think you can stop it? You think you can change the world? It's already too late. The plan is already in motion. You'll never get to the heart of it. You'll never. Before the hybrid could finish their sentence, the hero reached forward, gripping the figure's throat, squeezing with all the power he had left. It wasn't just physical strength. It was pure will, pure defiance. The hybrid gasped for air, their mechanical limbs thrashing, but the hero didn't let go. They had to know the truth. He needed to know who was truly behind all of this. The figure's eyes flickered and their lips trembled, but they couldn't speak. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, their eyes locked with the hero's. There was something strange in their gaze, a flicker of recognition, of understanding. You don't get it, the hybrid whispered, just before the light in their eyes began to fade. You're already part of it. In that moment, the room plunged into darkness, and the hero, standing amidst the ruins of what had once been his world, felt the weight of the realization settle on him like a shroud. It wasn't just a battle for control. It wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a battle for the very soul of humanity. The screen flashed one last time, showing a final cryptic message. The game is not over. And with that, the hero stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever came next. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of inner strength and resilience. Until next time, stay strong, stay brave, and never forget your worth.